You just found the CCTek YouTube channel.
Hey there. Welcome to what I guess I'm going to call my first real video with content other than my introduction and my Big Buddy Heater video that was my test bed for YouTube. I'm going to get involved with my 2019 Polaris RZR XP Turbo. Picked it up a couple months ago, did some horse trading. Kind of excited about getting back into off-road. Years ago I rode quads, three-wheelers, raced some off-road buggies. Been around it all my life with friends, and I'm just excited to be able to get back into it. And now I have the opportunity to try out the sport, performance side-by-sides and see what it's all about. Plus I get the wrench on something else, and I always love doing it. So here we go. Let's get to it, and hopefully you like it. Later. Okay, here we go. Here's a cold start of my new to me 2019 RZR XP Turbo. So far, so good. I'm going to move it over, do some looking around, figure things out before I take it out for a ride for the first time, really. One thing I know I want to change is this machine has an aftermarket Assassin's downpipe, charge pipe, blow-off valve, and programmer, DynoJet programmer with aftermarket Assassin's programs in it, 3 levels. Has an aftermarket Assassin's stage 3 clutch in it for the bigger tires, and the programmer, it's got 32-inch tires on it. And they have the blow-off valve hose that typically goes back to the downpipe disconnected so you can hear the blow-off valve. Well, you can hear it all the time, especially at partial throttle when you're not using all the boost. It's constantly blowing off, and for what I'm doing, it's kind of annoying. So one of the first projects I'm going to do is probably hook that pipe back up, and I'll show you that later. Actually, I'm going to take it for a little cruise around the circle here. Maybe get some before audio of the blow-off valve and try to get some after audio. Maybe you can hear that. All blow-off valve all the time. Here's the machine in my messy garage. I'm going to make some room to get in and look at the blow-off valve pipe. So I took off the cover for the belt drive vent. Just has 2 Torx screws in there. So I removed that to get access. Here is the drive cover and the vent tube that I'm going to remove to gain access to the blow-off valve, which I think you can see right there, the aftermarket Assassin's blow-off valve. You can see that's the open discharge, open to atmosphere. And then this pipe here, hose, with the nice pink zip tie around it, is actually the hose that hooks to that, and it has a, I'll try to get a better view of it, a billet aluminum plug in the end of it that's part of the kit. So we're going to pull that plug, hook that hose back up, and we'll see what the difference in sound is. But for now, I'm going to remove this vent tube, and I'm probably going to remove the drive cover and inspect the belt, since this is a new machine to me, and we'll see what kind of shape that's in. I'm going to get a new belt to keep on the machine as a spare for riding as well. Here's a tip that I'll try to cover more in my video on my toolkit that I'm putting together. But taking the drive cover screws out, you know, this one, I don't know if you can tell, is behind the shock. And so to reach it with an extension, like I have here on my impact driver, to try to be as flexible as possible, I guess pun intended, I like to buy extensions that are swivel ends. They work really well, not great for the highest torque applications, but with 1/4 inch drive, which was what I'm using here, it gives you the ability to have some flexibility to get into some tight situations like this, where I can get on the head of that screw with the drill at an angle, and it gives me enough flexibility to get that screw out of there. So I was just trying to get the cover off. Again, I've never worked on one of these before, and so one of the tips that I want to give you in doing something for the first time, you know, there's a bolt pattern, screw pattern with plastic ears that hold this plastic cover on. Not knowing how many screws hold it on, you know, I thought I had them all, and I tried to get it off and it wouldn't come off, only to find out I missed one down here between the CV, the starter, and the cover. And so you go very slow, and if it's not coming off easily, don't pull, don't think it's stuck, or you will break these plastic ears off. So I'm going to get this last screw out and we'll get the cover off and take a look. I got the cover pulled back. It looks like this will not come out of here with the shock and spring still hooked up. Somebody that knows better than me can comment in the comments and let me know if I'm wrong. Looks like we have a blue spring installed in the primary. The belt looks to be in great shape. The shivs are nice and clean. There's no rubber buildup on them that I can see anywhere. Everything's nice and tight. Yeah, looks as I hoped. With a new machine, it only has about, I think it's 750 miles on it. So I'm really pleased with that. I'm guessing this is the factory Polaris belt. So I'm not sure what belt I'm going to buy as a replacement. I've heard a lot of good things about the world's best belts. I believe they're G-Force maybe, world's best belt. I've heard the Polaris heavy duty belt is the way to go. Also the Gates Kevlar belt. So if anybody has any suggestions, real world experience, let me know. I'd like to have a good belt in my toolkit as a replacement for running on the trail. As I go to reassemble, if anybody's wondering, there are 8 screws retaining the drive cover. I did also, and let's get some light on the situation. I did also find out or learn that the cover sits on a lip around the transmission case, and you can get it on there to what you think fits. And these ears down here will not be sitting flush against the aluminum mating ears on the transmission. And so if you were to try to put the screws in and pull that down, you would break those ears. So be certain that the ears are sitting flush against the aluminum ears before you put the screws in and pull them down, to make sure you don't break those plastic parts. Another tip, and that's what I'm hoping that a lot of these videos show, are some of the little tips for people that don't normally work on their stuff. There's a lot of great content out there on YouTube on how to do these jobs in general, but they don't cover sometimes all the little things that can keep you from getting out on the trail or make. Here's another tip. You saw me using a impact drill driver previously, taking the cover off. When I do reassembly, not to mention alignment with plastic parts, I always start the screws by hand to get the first thread started. Then I use a ratchet, and I like these ratchets that are adjustable. You can use them like a screwdriver. You can use them as a ratchet for torquing things down. I start all of my fasteners by hand with a ratchet to get the first few threads, and this is tough filming and doing it, working at the same time. But you get to start your fasteners, especially in tapped aluminum threads. You can tell whether you're lined up or if you're cross threading right away. If you do that with a drill driver that has good torque like the DeWalt brushless that I use has, you will cross thread these fasteners quicker than you can let off the trigger, and then you're in a world of hurt. So I get them all started, then I'll switch over to the drill driver to get them all snug, and then I come back and by hand put the final torque on them to make sure you don't break those ears, make sure the cover is seated and everything is nice and tight. Alright, the cover's back on in place. Not one plastic tab was broken in the making of this video. Super stoked about that. Alright, I cut the nice pink zip tie off. Here is the hose that connects to the blow-off valve with the billet aluminum cap. It's got a regular worm drive hose clamp on it. I'm going to pull that out and get it reassembled back to the blow-off valve and get it clamped up. Alright, I got up in there, cleaned the blow-off valve nipple, got the billet cap out of the hose, cleaned the hose up to make sure it had a good seal. You can see the alignment of this hose, the alignment of that blow-off valve are not optimum. So I am going to try to get up in and loosen the hose clamp on the blow-off valve. You might be able to see it tucked back in there. I'm going to try to reclock the blow-off valve because I'm not real happy with the kink in the vacuum reference for the blow-off valve there either. So I'm going to try to tidy this all up and make it so that I don't have any binds. And I find that over time things that are under pressure because of binding, when subjected to vibration and expansion and contraction from heat, something always gives when everything is always on a bind or under load, and that spells failure, especially when you're out riding. You don't want failure and get stranded. You lose the blow-off valve and the engine doesn't make boost because you have an open line in your charge tube, and you lose power. And as far as I would think, this engine might go into limp mode. I'm not sure, I'm not real familiar, but in generally speaking, those kinds of things can happen. So we're going to try to get that fixed. Okay, here we go. So I took the access cover for the air cleaner, spark plugs, coil packs, everything off. You can see the blow-off valve here. I loosened up the worm drive clamp there, rotated the blow-off valve, I guess counterclockwise as you would look at it from the driver's side of the vehicle. Pointed it straight down, tightened that clamp back up, adjusted this reference line. It's got a little nick in it. I'm gonna have to try to get another line for that. It's just a short piece of vacuum line, so I'll see if I have any on the shelf. If not, I'll pick some up and get that replaced. So coming down around, you can see with everything just laying loose, the alignment. Move this light. The alignment, just everything laying loose, is much better. So I'll put that hose back on there, tighten the clamp down, and I'll be pretty happy with that project. All hooked back up and ready to go. So I'll put the vent tube, breather tube for the drive cover back on, get that reassembled, and take it for a ride and see if we quieted it down a little bit. Alright, I went to reassemble the vent pipe, and there's a worm drive clamp that goes around here. This is it. And when I went to put it back on, I looked at it. Somebody, looks like they applied all the torques, maybe 2 or 3 ugga-duggas too much to this little worm drive clamp. So we're getting rid of that. And I happen to have one on the shelf. It's probably 50% bigger that fits, and I'll be reinstalling that. So hopefully we'll keep water and all the ugly stuff out of the drive cover. There we go, all back together. Let's check in on another tip. Speaking of 1 or 2 ugga-duggas too much on that cheap worm drive clamp, which tool would you choose? You're correct, the one on the left. The one on the right you may be able to use to take up if you have a lot of extra clamp to run through, if you're on the bottom side of the range for that clamp size. But definitely
torque all hose clamps, worm drive clamps, whatever you want to call it, by hand using, I prefer a socket because you know exactly how tight you're getting it. Straight blade screwdrivers don't always work well for worm drives. They slip and you don't know if you got it where you want it. Just another helpful hint.
All right, here we go. I've got those couple projects finished. I'm gonna take it for a little ride here and see if the blow-off valve is quieter. Much better. Oh, quite a difference. Success.
Well, there you have it. My first real video. I think it came out okay. I'm still learning a lot. I'm really happy with the projects on the RZR. The belt, the blow-off valve. The blow-off valve I couldn't be happier with. And, you know, every little project teaches me a little bit more about the machine itself. Coming up, you can see this thing is sitting in my garage. When winter's over, my 69 Camaro has to come home. You'll probably be seeing some content on that in the future. But this has to go when the Camaro comes home. So I have an idea for how to solve that problem, and that'll be coming up in a video shortly. So if I can ask you to subscribe, like, share, comment positive, comment negative, tell me what I need to do, what I don't need to do. And hopefully I'll be able to continue to make some cool content that everybody likes. Appreciate it. See you next time.